Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live via SHR Media and also live on Facebook. I'm very happy to be here. I did not warn any of you, and I guess I should say this over and over again, that I was going to be moving from Fridays to Wednesdays in the middle of the week. That just seems to be a much better day of the week to have the show. So that's why I am here on a Wednesday. And then I had a special show on Monday night because CPAC was over the weekend, and I wanted to get those interviews out to you guys. But I'm very glad to be here. So if you're wondering, why is she appearing on Wednesday? Why is this popping up on my feed on a Wednesday? And why is this popping up on my iTunes on a Wednesday? That is because the show has moved from Friday to Wednesday, and I'm very happy to be here. My guest this hour is Raven Magwood. She is a motivational speaker and achievement expert. She's going to talk to us today about the 7 practices of prosperous women, a spiritual woman's guide to success. I'm really excited to have her today. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in the news. First of all, the market is back up today. Let me make sure that I'm right about that, because the market gets funky around the time it's supposed to close. Make sure that I am right about that. Okay, yes, the Dow's up another 1,100 points. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, ladies and gentlemen. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that things are not looking as good for Bernie Sanders as a presidential candidate, and I think we're kind of starting to get used to the idea of this coronavirus situation. And then there was a news report today that came out that said that actually the coronavirus spreads less than the flu. This is according to the World Health Organization. One of their officials said that the death rate appears to be higher at 3.4%, based on data from China. Now, I think they're purposely saying based on data from China because, we kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. They are not a democracy, and transparency is not really a thing with their government. So, but their death rate is higher at 3.4%, but it's not as contagious. Now, that's conflicting information, and the article that I read here on LinkedIn said that the researchers argue that the rate may drop as they get a full picture of the outbreak, which they really do. Every day they're researching it. They really don't have a full picture of what the outbreak is like. The information that they have now is coming from deaths deaths outside of China, and those exceed within the country where the outbreak began, which is interesting. In the United States, for example, deaths rose to 9, and Los Angeles has declared a state of emergency. Italy has also closed schools and universities. So that's pretty interesting. It's a little bit scary. Anytime there's a new illness going around, it's just a little bit scary, and it's something to be concerned about, something to be prayerful about. In other news, Bloomberg is out. I don't think he would and he endorsed Joe Biden. I got to be honest with you. I did not think that he was going to get out that fast. I really didn't. I thought he was going to hang in there for a little longer, but he got out and endorsed Biden, which makes me think that, not that the fix is in. I don't want to put it like the fix is in. As someone who's involved in politics on a local and state level, where I live, this is mostly strategic. It's mostly strategy. I mean, it's really politics. It's a side of politics that a lot of people don't like, but I have to say that this is one of those things. So he's backing Joe Biden. It looks like that the party is getting behind Joe Biden, and in order to squeeze Bernie out. Now, I don't know how Bernie feels about that. I can imagine that he's feeling quite put upon, and I don't know how Bernie's supporters are going to feel about that. Now, I saw a social media post earlier today that said that the Bernie Bros, the Bernie people should back Trump as a form of revenge. And as a Trump supporter, I mean, I'm not totally against that. I don't think that didn't sound like the most horrible idea to me. I'm just saying. Let's see what else is happening in the news. In California, the state of California, which is, well, I don't know why they just don't secede already and be done with it. I'm sorry. I'm not a big fan of California and the way they run their state. California said that 43 companies did not appoint a woman to their corporate board despite being required to do so by law. I don't like, there was a rule passed in 2018 that companies are obliged to have a female director by the end of the year or risk increasing fines starting at $100,000. Now that's just, to me, I don't like that any more than I'm really in love with things like affirmative action, which requires places to have a certain amount of Black people. I quite frankly, I've talked about this before, as someone who is an educator that teaches STEM on a college level, I find that it's a black cloud over my career, over my other career. I find that people tend to ask me more what schools I've attended. They tend to ask me about what my experience has been. And I attribute that, and I may be wrong, but I attribute that, a lot of that, to affirmative action. And maybe I should attribute it to the people who assume that I have been where I am or have accomplished what I've accomplished in my career by affirmative action. But I find that it is super annoying. Welcome to the Facey Chat, Doug Paz, Mike Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for being here. Mike Fitzpatrick is going to be here very shortly. He's going to be here on April 1st, and I believe he's going to be here again in May. We're trying to get him every month. If you don't know who he is the CEO and cybersecurity expert at NCX Group, and he always gives us some very timely information about what's going on in the cybersecurity world. And those of us who use computers on a regular basis need to definitely listen to him. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. And my guest this hour is Raven Magwood. She is an achievement expert, a best-selling author, and motivational speaker. I'm very glad to have her on the show today. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Don't just pass the IRS exams. Why not pass them all and get a solid tax education too? Visit irsexams.school and let the Tax Mama staff get you started today. All our live and self-study tax courses offer you the convenience to study online on your own time and have everything you need to succeed. Tax Mama teaches you tax law, practice, and representation from the ground up. That's irsexams.school. Why wait? Get enrolled today in our premium course or the self-study class. That's irsexams.school. It's way more than just a review course. It will improve your entire future.
And welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. And my guest today is the one and only Raven Magwood. I'm so excited to have her on the show today. She is an achievement expert and motivational speaker. And today she's going to talk to us about her book entitled 7 Practices of Prosperous Women, A Spiritual Woman's Guide to Success. I'm so excited to have her here. And without further ado, Raven Magwood.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm super excited to have you here. We spoke on the phone just before we got on the air, and I was saying how I met you at the National Publicity Summit in Manhattan. You were just a delight. And today is my mom's birthday, and so I had to postpone a little bit my joining my family for my mom's birthday dinner because I was so excited about having her on the show. They're cool with it though. My mom's cool. So if everybody who's listening wants to wish my mommy a happy birthday, please do. Please do so.
Yeah, happy birthday, mommy.
Oh, thank you so much. So listen, before we move on to talk about the book, please tell us a bit about your background.
Oh, yes. I am an author and motivational speaker. I have been doing this. I'm in my 20s now. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. And that's actually when I published my first book called On to Victory, The Winning Edge. And at that time, I wrote the book because I was a national gymnastics champion and I had skipped 2 grades. And I was just really writing about my experience and realized that I could help other people by showing them not only my successes, but some of my setbacks and adversity as well, which included at the time having surgeries and being told that I wouldn't be successful and dealing with a knee disease despite the fact that I was a gymnast. So that's where I got started, and then we moved forward. I graduated from high school with a 5.1 GPA when I was 16, and then graduated from college, Clemson University, when I was 19 with a 4.0. And when I graduated, I really started just traveling the country, traveling internationally, really just trying to get people to unlock their full potentials. And so now I'm a best-selling author of 4 books, the latest of which is The 7 Practices of Prosperous Women, as you just said. And I'm just excited to be able to talk to individuals like yourself about my journey and tips and tools to be successful.
Now, that's amazing. There's a lot to unwrap there. You said your first book was when you were 12?
Yes.
Because I'm thinking, what can a 12-year-old tell me about success? And then you went on to talk about your successes, and I'm like, oh, that.
Yes, and it's just a crazy thing. I didn't want to be an author or a motivational speaker. Everything has just kind of fallen into place. And when I was just 11 writing that book, I didn't even know I was writing a book at the time. One of my teachers just told me to write about my experiences as a national gymnastics champion, as someone who was younger and had skipped 2 grades. And it was just in my writing that I remember looking at my mom and saying, I shouldn't just write about all the good stuff. Let me write about some of the bad stuff too, and maybe I can help people. And that just ended up actually changing my life. And even though I wrote that book when I was 11, published it when I was 12, in middle and elementary schools around the country, they used the book in their curriculum. I actually went to a middle school a couple months ago and got to visit with the kids who were there, and they were reading my book, and it was just a delight. So it's just amazing to realize how you can have an impact on people even at such a young age.
That's amazing. And it's incredible. As someone who teaches in a public school, I find that, at least it's been my experience, that I think we kind of limit kids and don't expect enough out of kids today, just in general.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you feel about that, if you agree with that or not, but considering your accomplishments, now obviously you probably were born with a certain level of talent to begin with, right? Certain level of smarts. A certain level of talent.
I won't deny that. Yeah, I won't deny that I was given certain intellectual capabilities, but with anything, you have to also be willing to tap into it. And I worked extremely hard to be able to graduate valedictorian. And, just back to what you said about challenging kids and my journey, I've just seen a lot of kids who aren't challenged. And I think in a lot of systems, we're teaching kids what to think, and we're telling them what to do, and we're not necessarily teaching them how to think and how to figure out what they need to do. And that is what I wish to instill more in the kids and adults. That critical thinking that I'm down, but I'm not out. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm going to get out of this situation. And I'm just a strong advocate of that.
That is excellent. And I've often said one of my bigger complaints about what we do in public schools is, instead of teaching kids that when you have a setback, you need to be resilient. And here are some tools, here are some exercises, here are some ways that you can exercise that resilience. I mean, resilience doesn't just come to you. Resilience is something that you can be taught, I believe, as long as you're given some tools on how to be resilient. And instead, I find what we do in these schools is lower the standard. And I just find that to be, I think it's a shame that that's the way we do it.
Yeah, and I think with anything, whether it's a sport, whether it's in the classroom, we need to not be afraid of a challenge and be afraid of challenging our kids, because you just don't even realize how smart they are and how capable they are. But if they're not able to exercise that, they won't know, and we won't know either.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, did you have that spiritual part of your life as well as a child, or did that develop as you got older?
It developed into my own faith as I got older. As a child, I think you do certain things because your parents are doing it. You know, I was going to church every Sunday because my parents would tell me to get up and get ready and let's go to church. And so it, I think, was something that was of my parents and just ingrained in our family culture that I did connect with. I was baptized at 9 years old. At 5, my mom says that when she asked me what I wanted for my birthday gift, I actually asked her for wisdom. And so she says, even at a young age, I just had a different thing about me. Like I wanted more than a normal 5-year-old, a normal 9-year-old. But when I got older and I started to go through my own university, and I started to certain things around me, and I knew that I had been entrusted with certain gifts and capabilities, I think my spirituality became my own, and it wasn't my parents anymore. It was me. My relationship with God further developed through my adversity, and now I'm just able to really touch and talk to people about getting through adversity, maintaining a positive mindset, and really just pushing forward despite whatever circumstance you may find yourself in.
Indeed, and it's really ironic that it's only really, it seems, through the fire that we're able to develop that way.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It seems I want to say, like, unfortunately, that seems to be the only way to develop your trust in God. The only way to develop yourself spiritually and to grow spiritually is to have some fire.
Exactly, and to be in a place where that's really all you have. And, you know, they say a gem cannot be polished without friction. And I don't think...
The book is called, let me make sure, I always want to make sure that I get titles and things like that right. 7 Practices of Prosperous Women, a spiritual, wait a minute, now I need to scroll back up because I was reading through it earlier today. A spiritual woman's guide to success. And I think that that's important, that you point that out, that there's a spiritual woman's guide to success, that there's a context of being a spiritual woman that is important.
Yes, very much so, because there's just certain things that we're going to come by in life where we have to have a mindset that's outside of ourselves. And no matter who you choose to worship, or whether you're more spiritual, more religious, or whatever it may be, I think we all can agree that when you believe in something more than yourself, you're able to reach new platforms and you're able to help more people. And that's really what I was going with this guide, with this spiritual woman's guide to success. This is giving tools to people to not only unlock your own full potential and be the best person that you can be, but through that journey, being able to inspire others. Because I'm just a strong believer that your life may be the only Bible that another person reads. And I want you to be able to live your life in such a way that you can inspire other people to dream bigger and be better. And that's what I choose to do every single day.
It is inspiring, and I love the way you put that your life may be the only Bible people read. People are very either intimidated by the Bible, or I think a lot of people are intimidated by it. But it's like anything else. It's like diet and exercise. You know what I mean? Like you need it, so you have to go for it.
You need it, and you have to be intentional. And I think that's a huge lesson that I try to teach with my book and in my speeches. Be intentional, because nothing's just going to happen. You have to make it happen. You have to make time for it. And it's the same with our spirituality.
Exactly. Now, in the book, you say one of the first things that you say to do is visualize the end result. That's a pretty common thing, especially in the new age of New Age religion, the age of New Ageness. Here we go. The era of New Age religion. That's what I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
In the era of New Age religion, you hear a lot about visualization, but I want to hear from you exactly what you mean when you say that.
When I say to visualize the end result, of course, visualization is a part of it, and I talk about that in the book, but it's really just about understanding where you want to go. Because if you want to get to a certain place, you've got to first put it in your GPS. You got to know the direction that you want your life to go in and what you want to do. I think there's so many people in life that are aimlessly roaming. They say they want to be great, but then they don't put a direction on it. And in that case, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Like, you can turn left, you can turn right, it doesn't matter. And in this first chapter, I really just ask questions and get people to understand that you have to set goals, understand where you're going. And when you do set goals, there's a method. A lot of times we can set huge long-term goals and fail to set appropriate short-term goals. And when we don't set appropriate short-term goals, we can become discouraged when we don't accomplish our long-term goals immediately, within a week, within a month, even within 6 months. So I really encourage people to break down their goals into short-term goals, and then with those short-term goals, create daily tasks that are going to bring you closer to achieving your goals every day. And that way you have wins on your way to success, on your way to achieving your goals, and it just becomes a habit of you going after the vision that you set for yourself.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's very good stuff. Now, as I am listening to you, of course, I'm thinking of all the goals that I have set for myself, but I don't have little mini goals. And so that could be part of the kind of like struggle as far as not accomplishing the goals that you want to accomplish. And it's funny because I feel like other people you compare yourself, right? To other people. So somebody somewhere is comparing themselves to me while I'm comparing myself to maybe you, right? And saying, okay, I've done nothing. And I have an awful lot of work to do. And someone else might be comparing their life to mine and say, oh my gosh, look at all she's accomplished. And I feel like I have a lot more to accomplish. So we can't do that. We have to visit ourselves where we are. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree. You have to run your race. You can't look around to what's going on around you. You can't compare yourself, because we're all given different gifts, abilities, talents, and you have to be able to utilize what you've been given in particular. Einstein even said one time that if a fish judged itself by its ability to climb a tree, it would go its whole life thinking it was stupid. And as silly as that may sound, it's just so true. A fish isn't meant to climb trees. Like, some of us are really good at math. Some of us are really good at English. Some of us are really good at money. Some of us just have charisma. We're good with people. So what is your gift? What's your ability? And how can you hone in on that to not only make yourself feel good, but make money as well, turn it into a career, become an entrepreneur, going into that field of work. And so that's just extremely important, that you figure out what it is that you're passionate about, and you set goals that are specifically for you, and not your parents, not your spouse, not anyone else. What is it that you want out of life? And then when you're on that journey, pay attention to yourself. When you're watching the Kentucky Derby, the horses have blinders on. They're not worried about anybody else or any other horse. They're running their race. And that's my encouragement to anyone. Run your race.
That is so very true. Now, this next thing in the book almost made me cry when I read it. I was like, you say, bring the house down. And in parentheses, it says, give it your all the time. And I think that is so hard for everyone.
Yes, very much so. And I mean, it's hard for me. People will look at me and just assume that I have it all together and nothing's hard. It's like, no, just because someone carries something well doesn't mean it's not heavy. I carry things really well and I work really hard to the point you may not even notice how hard I'm working, but things don't just happen. And I said this before, you have to make things happen, and you have to be intentional about how hard you choose to work each and every day. And yes, there'll be days when you're not motivated. There'll be days you just don't know how you're going to move forward. But that's when the intention comes, and that's when you have to say, no, I'm going to get up today and do X, Y, Z. I'm going to do exactly what I need to do. And it's just about that intention. You can continue to make excuses about why you're not where you want to be in life, or you can just get up and make it happen.
That is so true. And when I read that, I thought, that can also apply to things that you don't necessarily want to do. But if you're not giving it your all at the time, you're really defeating yourself.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of times you have to do what you have to do in order to be able to do what you want to do. And we forget that sometimes, and we get stuck into the mind frame, oh, I don't want to do this, or I'm not going to give 100% because I don't feel like doing it. But no, in anything that you do, there should be excellence involved, and you should do your best. And when you're entrusted with the small things, you're going to be entrusted with bigger things down the road. So just don't let the things that you don't want to do hinder you from really achieving and unlocking your full potential.
Exactly. And I love the way you said that, unlocking your full potential, because whatever it is you're doing, a lot of times you don't even discover new things about yourself until you start putting it into something. A lot of times that's really mundane. You know what I mean? It's really, at least that's the way I see it. Or that's something you do every day. Like, I thought of myself in the classroom, and there are days when those children, and I'm like, you know what? Just read these books, read this assignment, answer these questions, and leave me alone. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that is that's not giving your all as a teacher. That's not, there's so much more that you can do.
Yes, this is true. And I mean, you see that, like you said, in all of these tasks that are just things that you do every day. You see it with students, and you see it with athletes. How do you train? Do you come in not wanting to go through the training phase because you're ready to be in the game, you're ready to compete at the competition? Or do you take training seriously every day? Do you give it your all? And you just find out a lot about people by watching them in these very daily tasks.
It's very true. And sometimes a lot of times I try to explain to my students, because they're kids and they don't get it yet, right? That a lot of times your feelings are not relevant.
Very true.
Very true. And in the interest of transparency, sometimes I need to tell myself that. Like, okay, okay, Melanie, I know you don't feel awesome about that, but your feelings are not relevant right now. Here's what's the priority.
Right, exactly. And my entrepreneurs out there especially know, like, there's days you just don't want to do whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing, but then it's like, okay, well, I feel this way, but my business is also on the line. I do need to make sure this client is taken care of, X, Y, Z. So, I can completely relate.
Exactly. And I feel like education, not only how we treat our kids in education. I had said to you earlier in the show about how I think that we don't expect enough from our students. I don't think we expect enough from our teachers either, but I don't mean that teachers are not working hard enough. I don't think we're asking for the right things from our teachers in order to help kids. I think there's other things, like the fact that we are, as a profession, banned basically from encouraging students to rely on a higher power. And I'm just going to put it, I would say rely on God, but probably the furthest you could go in a public school is maybe say higher power, and you probably get in trouble for that. But to me, that is a really important part of life and teaching.
And it's just, it's just amazing how things have changed even in the past few years. And like I said, we're doing a lot of telling kids what to think and not showing them how to think and how to make certain choices for themselves.
Exactly. They definitely need to know that. And we certainly, the last thing we encourage them to do is to bring down the house and give it their all the time. Now, I mean, honestly, I feel like it's like, we don't want kids to be stressed. We don't want them to have anxiety. Well, what's going to cause them to be anxious when they're grown people and don't know and don't have an education.
Know what they need to be doing, right?
Exactly. Now there's some anxiety for you, right? Now,
right.
You talk about recognizing your true strength. How do you go about doing that? Because anybody who's watched one episode of American Idol knows that not everybody is in touch with what their true strengths are.
Well, really, with recognize your true strength, it's really just understanding how powerful that your mind is. And in this chapter, I talk so much about your mindset, renewing your mind, thinking about things in a more positive way, because our mind is just so powerful, and I think we don't give our minds enough credit sometimes at how powerful it is. And, really a lot of days, the difference between having a good day and having a bad day is your mindset. How do you look at situations? Do you try to find the positivity in a situation, or are you always just looking at the negative? That's a huge factor in your ability to achieve success, and that's why it's a whole chapter in the book. Renew your mind, get into a good positive mindset, and understand that without that, you won't be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve.
Exactly. What are the things you are thinking about? Particularly when you're faced with something that's super challenging.
Right. Exactly. Because you can look at it as an opportunity, or you can look at it as adversity and something that you're not going to be able to overcome. But it's all about how you look at the situation.
Exactly. We're up against a commercial break. When we get back on the other side, I can't wait to talk about how to use a timeout. I'm loving the idea of taking care of yourself. That sounds good to me, but I feel like it's not sitting back with your feet up and always living luxuriously and doing nothing. I bet there's more to it than that. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest this hour is Raven Magwood. She is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, motivational speaker, and achievement expert. I'm very excited to have her on the show today. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love numbers and puzzles and want job security, you can become a tax specialist with an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama. Operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. Everything you need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school, and if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
Southern is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you tell us as host, and C.S. Bennett, co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern sense is common sense. Southern.
And we're back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My guest this hour is Raven Magwood. She's an entrepreneur, best-selling author, motivational speaker, and achievement expert. I'm really excited to have her on the show today. We're talking about her best-selling book, 7 Practices of Prosperous Women. I want to just call it that, but I think I'm burying the lead when I say that the subtitle is A Spiritual Woman's Guide to Success. So excited to have her on the show. And before the commercial break, we were talking about the importance of giving yourself a time out. So what do you mean when you say that you should use a time out?
Yes, and speaking about a timeout, it's about prioritizing and understanding how to use your time in order to achieve success. because a lot of people fail to truly recognize that we're all given 24-hour days. So whoever it is that you look up to in life and you feel like, oh my gosh, they're so successful, and guess what? They have 24 hours just like you have 24 hours and I have 24 hours. So the question then becomes, how are you utilizing your 24 hours? And that's what using a timeout is about, is using a timeout not only to take care of yourself and putting that in your schedule as well, but also putting in the work in your schedule and understanding that, once again, things don't just happen. You've got to make them happen. And if it's important to you, then you will make it happen.
That is very true. And the thing is, we waste an awful lot of time, don't we?
Oh, yeah. No, we do. We waste an extraordinary amount of time. And sometimes we just don't even want to admit the amount of time that we're wasting. I remember months ago, I was speaking at a business conference, and a woman came up to me after saying that she didn't have the time to finish her business plan. And she was very adamant about not being able to finish because of the fact that she was a wife and a mother to her kids, and she volunteered, and she had another job, and she just went on and on and on about all the reasons why she can't finish her business plan. And before I really gave her a direct answer about what she could do to move forward past the situation, I asked her what her favorite television shows were. And she named about 6 different shows that I also happened to like, so I knew for a fact that they were in season. So she names these shows, she's saying Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder and Grey's Anatomy, and she's gone on and on and on, these 6 shows. And so after she's done telling me the shows that she likes, I ask her, okay, well, are you caught up with these shows? And without hesitation, she said, of course I'm caught up.
Yeah, girl, I'm all over it.
Exactly. I watch it live every week. And so I look at her again, and I'm like, okay, and I think it's starting to click at this point in time. And I tell her, you just named 6 shows that you tell me you watch every week. Each of those shows is an hour long. That's 6 hours in a week, 12 hours over 2 weeks that you are spending time watching these shows. So is your business plan really that important to you, or is TV more important? And I could see the tears coming in her eyes, and she was like, oh my gosh. And she thought about it. She gave me a hug, and she said, thank you. And I guess she went home, thought about what I said, because I got a message 2 or 3 weeks later saying, Raven, I finished my business plan. So, it's just amazing how sometimes we just make these excuses and we really are not intentional with how we use our time.
It is extremely true, and I know I've definitely been guilty of that. I love my social media. I love my social media, and I tell you, one of the things that really keeps me on track is that new. I have an iPhone, and they have a screen time app. That is sobering. I don't know if any of my listeners out there have used that screen time app, but I kind of wince a little bit before I look at it to see how I'm doing. And it's like, really? And why is 95% of your time on social media and only 2% on productivity? That is a problem.
Right. Exactly. And it's so easy to do with the technology and all the social media platforms, and it's at our fingertips. It's very easy to waste time and lose track of it. But once again, it's about the intention.
Exactly. It's totally about the intention, and it's just really hard, especially when you are trying to accomplish things that are not necessarily fun and not necessarily that you enjoy. Now, also in the book, you have a chapter on cutting your losses. And so what do you mean when you say to cut your losses?
When I say cut your losses, I mean to remove yourself from negative people and situations. I think a lot of times we're not achieving what we need to achieve or what we want to achieve because we're around negative people. We're around people who don't believe in the beauty of our dreams, who are putting us down, who just aren't the best peers or colleagues or role models for what we should aspire to be. And you think, well, I'm my own person. I'm not going to let other people determine how I am or how I act or what I do. But the truth is, when you're around someone extremely often, you pick up their habits and their ways, no matter how strong-willed you are. And so you just want to make sure that you're just keeping positive people around you, people who are going to uplift you, people who believe in the beauty of your dreams and want to see you successful. And the same thing goes with situations. I know we can't always help certain situations, but if we can, we should try to step away. We should try to remove ourselves from the negativity. And then when you can't, this is when we have to challenge ourselves to think or to change the way we're thinking about the situation. Because in many cases, we can't help who our family is. There are some distant relatives that we can love at a distance, but, it could be a parent who doesn't believe in us. It could be a brother or sister. It could be a work situation that we can't get out of immediately. And in those cases, no, you can't change the person, you can't change the situation, but change how you think of it. Is there a positive quality that you can really think about and concentrate on with that person? Is there a positive quality you can think about with the situation? Or can you even trick yourself and think about the situation temporarily? Like if you're at a job you hate, but if you save enough money, you can go out on your own. So instead of going to work angry every single day, why not think about it in, okay, well, in 18 months, I know I'm going to be out of here. Let me do the best I can for this period of time. And so just change how you think about a situation when you can't actually change the situation.
When you can't, and that's really good advice, especially when you say remove yourself from negative people. And would you agree to also surround yourself with positive people? I've heard that advice before. So surround yourself with people who are doing better than you are.
Of course. And you want to just at least be around one person who can teach you something. And I'm not saying that this person has to be your mentor. You have to spend 24 hours a day around your mentor. But even if it is a friend or a relative or a colleague, just someone who maybe thinks about a situation differently than you, someone who can teach you something, someone who can provide you a different perspective of the world. Because guess what? As much as we would like to be right all the time, we're not. And we have to be willing to learn from other people, even from unlikely sources. I am a strong believer that even a broken clock is right twice a day. I think I can learn something from anyone if I spend enough time around them or I really look at their life enough. And so don't be afraid to learn from individuals that you wouldn't normally go after or learn from. And then keep your eyes open in certain situations as well. Learn from the situations that you're in and things that you've gone through. Very
good. That's excellent. That is excellent advice. Learn from situations in which you've gone through. Don't just go through it and say, well, that's
right. Exactly. Get the lesson. If you're going to be in a struggle, if you're going to be down, before you get back up, make sure you're carrying those lessons on your way back up.
That is exactly right. I love it. That's excellent advice. So now you also say to go back from square one. That kind of touches on what we were talking about a moment ago about learning from your failure. And how does that look when you learn from your failure? I think a lot of people feel like because they failed, that's the lesson. And I'm not sure that that's exactly the lesson. Like the failure in itself is not necessarily the lesson.
No, not at all. And of course, we learn from failure. We learn that we are going to get no's sometimes. We learn that we're human and we will make mistakes. But it really depends on the situation, what exactly you're learning from. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a friendship. What did you bring to the table? What did you allow that maybe you shouldn't have? What did you put up with? How did you teach that person how to treat you? Those are all things that you can ask yourself and be really reflective about and learn from it when you get into your next relationship or your next friendship with someone. Maybe it's a business and you failed in a certain aspect and you really look at your reviews and things that were up and down, and maybe it was your customer service. Maybe you could have done better taking care of your customers, and moving on into the next business, you really put an emphasis on how you treat your customers and that customer service aspect. And so whatever it is in that way, you have to be willing to recognize it and then be willing to learn from it. I always say, don't look at where you fell, look at where you tripped. It's not about where you fell. You started to stumble before you fell on your butt. So let's go back a little bit and see, where did you trip? Where did you start to stumble? And that's where you have to be honest with yourself. And that's where you have to instill that change.
Oh, I love that. I love that analogy, because you think, the scriptures talk about, falling several times and always getting back up.
Mm-hmm.
But as you were talking, I just visualized like you stumbling and stumbling and stumbling. Sometimes you just stumble and don't fall. Sometimes it takes like a long time to fall, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's not about the location you fell. Let's look at where you tripped. Where did it start to go wrong?
Exactly. And that is so true. And I always look at failure as just constant falling, but you're so right. You really probably did a lot of stumbling before you finally went kabloom.
Right. So, I mean, that's so true. It's so true.
And fell on your hiney. And then and it's better, I would think, while you're stumbling, and kind of recognize, am I stumbling here? What is going on here? Am I headed in a not so fantastic direction?
Exactly. And it takes practice. I mean, just think when you're learning how to walk. I know we can't remember to that point, but we can imagine. I mean, when you're learning how to walk, it's trial and error, and you don't even realize, I would imagine, that you're even off balance when you're first starting off. You just fall and fall and fall. But now, when we're walking, we know when we're off balance, and we try to self-correct before we hit the ground. And that's what happens, whether it's professionally or personally. We've got to practice. We've got to be aware. And when we start to stumble, say, you know what, I'm a little off course. Let me straighten back up.
So when we're doing things, we can't do them blindly and not paying attention to what we're doing, not paying attention to what's going on. Now, one of the other things that you talk about in the chapter, and this, I think this is one of the ones I find most challenging, and I'm sure that I am not alone, is that you say to never throw in the towel, to never, ever, ever give up. Now, I always feel like, no, there actually is a time where you really should give up. But and maybe
no, there is, and I actually talk about it, and I'm glad you brought that up. I actually do talk about it. When I say don't give up, I mean don't stop pushing forward in a positive direction. I don't mean something isn't for you and you keep on going after it and you keep on going after it, and you have been told 10 times by the good Lord above it is not for you, and you still want it anyway. No, that is not what I'm talking about. Because we do that. I mean, I think we do that, whether even it's with someone we're not even supposed to be with, and we're like, no, God, give me another sign. God gives us a sign. No, that wasn't the right sign.
I was going to say there's a meme about that, right? Where it says, give me a sign, Lord. And the sign is falling on the person, and the person's on the ground.
Give me another sign.
Give me another one. That one wasn't really all that clear.
Right, exactly. So that's not what I mean when I say never, ever, ever give up. I just mean don't make a permanent decision out of a temporary circumstance. Don't not move forward in a positive direction with your life because there are certain things that have tried to get you down. In my own life, I've had dreams and goals that I thought I wanted at a certain age, and then life just steered me in an even better direction. And I didn't give up on being who I'm supposed to be. Maybe I got steered in a different direction and I tried new things, and maybe I'm not doing some of the things I was doing before, but I'm still on this journey of inspiring other people. I'm still me, and I'm still going after being the best version of myself. And so that is what I mean. There is a time, I do agree, when you've got to let something go. And you have to be willing to recognize that and understand the signs that are
there. When God is telling you no, just no. Sometimes, exactly. Especially when we're praying about that particular situation, and all signs are pointing to no, and you're like, yeah, that's not what I asked for. But what did you ask for, really? You asked for what was best for you? Yeah. And God's like, that's not it.
Exactly. And you have to understand that your plans are not always God's plans. You have to be willing to listen and take those signs and feel when you're being pushed in a certain direction and move forward in that direction.
That is very true. We're coming to the close of the show. I want you to tell everybody where they can get your book first and foremost, how they can, all the social media that they can follow you on, and all that good stuff.
Okay, yes. If you want an autographed copy of my book, you can get it from my website, www.ravenmagwood.com, and that's RAVENMAGWOOD.com. Those are autographed copies. But if you say, I just want it through Amazon Prime, I want to get it in 2 days, then go to Amazon. It's on there, Barnes & Noble. You can get it from there, Books A Million, really anywhere books are sold. You can find it, The 7 Practices of Prosperous Women. And then I'm also super active on Instagram. So you go and at me at Raven Magwood. I am there. Please follow, send me DMs. I love to respond to all your amazing stories and accomplishments. It's something that I absolutely love to do on Facebook, YouTube, same thing, at Raven Magwood. I am there and ready to hear from you.
I love it. Well, you did an excellent job. I'm so glad I got an opportunity to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's been my pleasure.
It has been my absolute pleasure. I want to thank one of my sponsors, Eva Rosenberg, aka the Tax Mama. If you want to learn how to be a tax expert like the Tax Mama, go to irs.school and check her out. You definitely want to do that. She is a fantastic expert on anything taxes, and I'm gonna have her back on the show very shortly. She's so very busy with her books and school and everything, it's hard to get her. So I want to thank Eva Rosenberg, the Tax Mama. I want to thank you, Raven Magwood, for being a guest. I want to thank everybody in the Facey chat. If you're listening to this podcast via a download on many of the zillion platforms where Money Talk with Melanie can be found, I appreciate you so very much. I want you to remember that this is very important because it's your money. Have a great day.